Book 2. Telemachus prepares for his voyage. As soon as rose-fingered early dawn appeared, Odysseus' dear son jumped up out of bed and dressed. He slung a sharp sword from his shoulders, then laced his lovely sandals over his shining feet. Then he left his room, his face resembling a god's. At once he asked the loud-voiced heralds to summon every long-haired Achaean to assembly. They issued the call, and the Achaeans came, gathering quickly. When the assembly had convened, Telemachus moved straight into the meeting, gripping a bronze spear. He was not by himself. 2 swift-footed hunting dogs accompanied him. Athene cast down over him a godlike poise. All the people were astonished at his presence as he entered and sat down in his father's chair, while the senior men gave way. Among those present, heroic Aegyptius was the first to speak, a man stooped with age, but infinitely wise. His son, the warrior Antiphus, had sailed to Troy, that horse-rich city, along with Lord Odysseus, in their hollow ships. But in his cave the wild Cyclops had slaughtered him, and made him his latest meal. Aegyptius had 3 other sons. One of them, Eurynomus, was with the suitors. The other 2 were always working in their father's fields, but still Aegyptius could not forget the son who died. And now, racked with grief and mourning, he shed tears as he addressed them. "Men of Ithaca, listen now to what I have to say. We have not held a general meeting or assembly since the day Odysseus sailed off in his hollow ships. What man has made us gather now? What's his reason? Is he a younger or a senior man? Has he heard some news about the army, and will he tell us details of its journey home, now that he has heard the news himself? Or is it some other public business he will introduce and talk about? He has my blessing. I pray that Zeus fulfills whatever he has in his heart and makes his wishes work out for the best." Aegyptius spoke. Odysseus' dear son rejoiced at such auspicious words, but he did not sit long, for he was very keen to speak. So he stood up in the middle of the meeting. In his hand, Pisenor, a herald who provided shrewd advice, placed the sceptre. Telemachus began to speak, talking to Aegyptius first of all. "Old man, the one who called the people to this meeting is not far off, as you will quickly learn. I did, for I'm a man who suffers more than other men. But I have no reports of our returning army, no details I've just heard myself to pass along to you, nor is there other public business I'll announce or talk about. The issue here is my own need, for on my household troubles have fallen in a double sense. First, my noble fathers perished, the man who was once your king and my kind father. And then there's an even greater problem, which will quickly and completely shatter this entire house, and my whole livelihood will be destroyed. These suitors, the dear sons of those men here with most nobility, are pestering my mother against her will. They don't want to journey to her father, Icarius, in his home, where he himself could set a bride price for his daughter and give her to the man he feels he likes, the one who pleases him the most. Instead, they hang around our house day after day, slaughtering oxen, fat goats, and sheep. They keep on feasting, drinking sparkling wine without restraint, and they consume so much. There's no man to guard our home from ruin, as Odysseus did before. I cannot act the way he used to and avert disaster. If I tried, I would be hopeless, a man who had not learned what courage is. And yet if I had power, I would defend myself, because we can't endure what's happening. My home is being demolished in a way that is not right. You men should be ashamed. You should honor other men, your neighbors who live close by. And you should be afraid of anger from the gods in case their rage at your bad acts turns them against you. I beg you by Olympian Zeus and Themis, who summons and disperses men's assemblies, restrain yourselves, my friends. Leave me alone to suffer my own bitter grief, unless Odysseus, my noble father, for spite has hurt well-armed Achaeans, and now in recompense for this you angry gods are harming me by urging these men on. For me it would be better if you gods ate up my landed property and flocks. If you gorged yourselves, then someday soon there might be recompense. All the time you were doing that, we'd walk up and down throughout the city, asking for our goods to be returned, until the day every piece was given back. But now you load my heart with pain beyond all hope." Telemachus spoke. Then, in his anger, he threw the sceptre on the ground and burst out crying. Everyone there pitied him. So all the other men kept silent, unwilling to give an angry answer to Telemachus. Antinous was the only one to speak. He said, "Telemachus, you boaster, your spirit is too unrestrained. How you carry on, trying to shame us, since you so desire the blame should rest on us. But in your case, Achaean suitors aren't the guilty ones. Your own dear mother is, who understands how to use deceit. It's been 3 years now, and soon it will be 4, since she began to frustrate hearts in our Achaean chests. She gives hope to each of us, makes promises to everyone, and sends out messages. But her intent is different. In her mind she has thought up another stratagem. In her room she's had a large loom set up, and started weaving something very big with thread that was quite thin. She said to us, 'Young men, those of you who are my suitors, since Lord Odysseus is dead, you must wait, although you're keen for me to marry, till I complete this cloak. Otherwise my weaving would be wasted and in vain. It is a shroud for warrior Laertes, for the day a lethal fate will strike him dead. Then none of the Achaean women here will be annoyed with me because a man who acquired so many rich possessions should lie without a shroud.' That's what she said, and our proud hearts agreed. And so each day she wove at her great loom, but every night she set up torches and pulled the work apart. 3 years she fooled Achaeans with this trick. They trusted her, but as the seasons passed, the 4th year came. Then one of her women, who knew all the details, spoke about them, and we caught her, undoing her lovely work. Thus we forced her to complete the cloak against her will. The suitors now say this, so you deep in your heart will understand, and all Achaeans know. Send your mother back. Tell her she must marry whichever man her father tells her and who pleases her. She can't keep on doing this for long, teasing Achaea's sons, because in her heart she knows that she's been given by Athene, more than any other woman, a skill in making lovely things, a noble heart, and cunning of a sort we never hear about in any fair-haired women of Achaea, even those who lived so long ago. Tiro, Alcmene, and Mycenae, the one who wore the lovely headband. None of them had shrewdness which could match Penelope's. Yet in one thing at least her scheme did not go well. Your livelihood and your possessions will keep being consumed as long as in her mind she follows plans the gods have now put in her heart. And so, while she is gaining a great reputation, you're sad about so much lost sustenance. But we are not going back to our own lands or some place else, not until she marries an Achaean man of her own choosing." Prudent Telemachus then said in reply, "Antinous, there's no way I will dismiss out of this house, against her will, the one who bore and nursed me. As for my father, he's in a distant land, alive or dead. It would be hard for me to compensate Icarius with a suitable amount, as I would have to do if I sent her back. If I didn't do that, then her father would treat me badly, and some deity would send other troubles, since my mother, as she left this house, would call upon the dreaded Furies. Men would blame me too. That's why I'll never issue such an order. And if your heart is angry about this, then leave my home. Go, have your feasts elsewhere. Eat up your own possessions, changing homes one by one. But if you think it's better, more in your interests, that one man's goods should be destroyed without repayment, then use them up. But I will call upon the immortal gods to ask if somehow Zeus will give me retribution. Then you'll die here in my home and never be avenged." Telemachus spoke. Then from a mountain peak, far-seeing Zeus replied by sending out 2 eagles, flying high up in the sky. For some time they soared like gusts of wind with their wings spread out side by side. But when they reached the middle of the crowded meeting, With quick beats of their wings they wheeled around, swooping down on everyone, destruction in their eyes. Then with their talons they attacked each other, clawing head and neck, and flew off on the right, past people's homes, across the city. They were amazed to see these birds with their own eyes. In their hearts they were stirred to think how everything would end. Then old warrior Halitherses, Mastor's son, addressed them. He surpassed all men of his own time in knowledge about birds and making prophecies of what fate had in store. Thinking of their common good, he spoke up and said, "Listen to me, men of Ithaca, hear what I say. In what I'm going to speak, I'm talking to the suitors most of all. A mighty ruin is rolling over them, for Odysseus will not be away for long from his own friends. I think even now he's nearby, planning a disastrous fate for all the suitors, and he'll be a scourge to many others here in sunny Ithaca. Long before that, we should be considering how to stop this, or rather these suitors should end it themselves. That would achieve what's best for them and do so right away, for I am not unskilled in prophecy. I understand things well. To Odysseus I say that everything is turning out just as I told him. Back when the Achaeans with resourceful Odysseus in their ranks were sailing off to Troy, I prophesied he'd suffer many troubles and would lose all his companions before returning home in 20 years, unknown to anyone. Now everything I said is coming true." Eurymachus, Polybus' son, then spoke out in reply. "Old man, you should go home and prophesy to your own children, so that something bad does not happen to them later. In these things I can foretell events much better than you can. There are lots of birds flying here and there beneath the sunshine, and not all of them are omens of disaster. Odysseus has perished far away, and how I wish you had died there with him. If you had, you wouldn't utter prophecies like these, or be encouraging Telemachus when he's enraged in hopes you'll get a gift, something he might give you for your house. But I tell you this, and it will happen. You know many things an old man knows, so if your words deceive a younger man and incite him to get angry, first of all he'll be worse off, and, with these men here, won't have the slightest power to act. And on you, old man, we'll lay a penalty that will pain your heart to pay. Your sorrow will be difficult to bear. But now, here, among you all, I will myself provide Telemachus' advice. He must command his mother to return home to her father. They will prepare a wedding and get as many lovely presents as befits a well-loved daughter. Before that happens, I don't think Achaea's sons will end their unwelcome wooing, for there's no one we're afraid of yet, not Telemachus, for all his wordiness, nor do we care about a prophecy which you, old man, may spout. It won't come to fruition, and many people will despise you all the more, and his possessions will be eaten up in this shameful way. There will never be compensation given so long as she keeps putting off Achaeans in this marriage. Because she's so desirable, we wait here day after day as rivals, and we don't seek different women, any one of whom might be suitable for us to marry." Shrewd Telemachus then said in reply, "Eurymachus, all you other noble suitors, no longer will I make requests of you or speak of it, for gods and all Achaeans understand. Just give me a swift ship and 20 rowers, so I can make a journey and return to various places, to Sandy Pylos and then to Sparta, to see if I can find some news about my father's voyage home. He's been gone so long, if any mortal man can tell me. Or I'll hear Zeus's voice, perhaps, which commonly provides men information. If I hear my father is still living and returning home, I could hold out here for 1 more year, although it's hard for me. If I learn he's dead and gone, I'll come back to my dear native land, build him a tomb, and there perform as many funeral rites as are appropriate. And after that, I'll give my mother to a husband." Telemachus said this, then sat down. Next, Mentor, who'd been noble Odysseus' companion, stood up among them. When he'd sailed off in his ships, Odysseus had made Mentor steward of his household, charging them to follow what the old man ordered, and telling Mentor to keep all property secure. Keeping in mind their common good, he spoke to them. "Men of Ithaca, listen now to me. Hear what I have to say. From now on, let no sceptred king ever be considerate, or kind, or gentle. Let him in his heart ignore what's right, act with cruelty, and strive for evil. For no one here, none of those whom divine Odysseus ruled, remembers him. Yet in his role as father he was compassionate. Not that I object to these proud suitors and the violent acts which they with their malicious minds commit, for they are putting their own heads at risk when they use force to drain Odysseus home of its resources and claim he won't come back. But at this point it's the other people I'm angry with. You, who sit in silence and don't say anything to criticize, or make the suitors stop, even though there are many of you and few of them. Then Leocritus, son of Euenor, spoke in reply. Mentor, you mischief-maker, your wits have wandered off. What are you saying, urging men to make us stop? It would be hard to fight against those who outnumber you, and about a feast, even if Odysseus, king of Ithaca, were to come in person, eager in his heart to drive out of his halls these noble suitors eating up his home. His wife would not rejoice at his arrival, although she yearned for him. For if he fought against so many men, then he would meet a shameful death right here. What you've just said is quite irrelevant. So come on now. You people should disperse, each one go off to his own land. As for Telemachus, well, Mentor and Halitherses, comrades of his ancestral house from years ago, will speed him on his way. But still I think he'll be sitting here a long time yet, collecting his reports in Ithaca. He's never going to undertake that trip. Leocritus spoke, and soon dissolved the meeting. The men dispersed, each man to his own house. The suitors went inside godlike Odysseus' home. Telemachus walked away to the ocean shore. There, once he'd washed his hands in grey salt water, he made this prayer to Athene. "O hear me, you who yesterday came to my home as a god and ordered me to set out in a ship across the murky seas to learn about my father's voyage back after being away so long. All this Achaeans are preventing, most of all the suitors with their wicked arrogance." As he said this prayer, Athene came up close to him, looking and sounding just like Mentor. She spoke. Her words had wings. "Telemachus, in future days you will not be worthless or a stupid man if you have in you now something of your father's noble spirit. He's the sort of man who in word and deed saw things to their conclusion. So for you this trip will not be useless or without result. If you're not sprung from Penelope and him, then I have no hope that you'll accomplish what you desire to do. It's true, few men are like their fathers. Most of them are worse. Only very few of them are better. But in future you'll not be unworthy or a fool, and you do not completely lack Odysseus' wisdom, so there is some hope you will fulfill your mission. So set aside what those foolish suitors have advised. They lack all discretion, all sense of justice, for they have no idea of death, the dark fate closing in on them when in a single day they will all perish. You must not delay that trip you wish to make. I am a friend of your ancestral home, so much so that I will furnish a fast ship for you and come in person with you. But now you must go home, mingle with the suitors, collect provisions and put everything in some containers, wine in jars, and barley meal, which strengthens men, in thick leather sacks. I'll go through the town and quickly round up a group of comrades, all volunteers. In seagirt Ithaca, I'll pick out from the many ships, new and old, the best one for you. And then, when that ship has been made ready and is fit to sail, we'll launch it out into the wine-dark sea." Athene, Zeus's daughter, finished speaking. Telemachus did not stay there for long. Once he had heard the goddess speak, he set off toward his home with a heavy heart, and there he found the arrogant suitors in the palace, by the courtyard, skinning goats and singeing pigs. Antinous came up, laughing at Telemachus. He grabbed his hand and spoke to him, saying, "Telemachus, you're such a braggart, an untamed spirit. You should never let that heart of yours entertain any further nasty words or actions. I think you should eat and drink, just as you did before. Achaeans here will certainly see to it you acquire all the things you need, some hand-picked oarsmen and a ship, so you can quickly travel to sacred Pylos in search of some report about your noble father." Prudent Telemachus then answered him and said, "Antinous, it's quite impossible for me to eat and stay quiet with your overbearing group, or to enjoy myself with my mind relaxed. Is it not sufficient that in days past, while I was still a child, you suitors consumed so much of my fine property? But now that I've grown up and teach myself by listening to others, and my spirit gets stronger here inside me, I will try to counteract the wicked fate you bring, either by going to Pylos, or else here in this community. For I will set out, and the voyage which I've talked about will not be useless, even though I travel as a passenger and not the master of the ship or oarsman. It seems to me you think that will make things better for you." Telemachus spoke. Then he casually pulled his hand out of Antinous' grasp. Meanwhile, the suitors, preoccupied with feasting in the house, mocked him and kept up their abusive insults. One of them, an over-proud young man, would speak like this: "It seems Telemachus really does intend to murder us. He'll bring men to help him back from sandy Pylos or from Sparta. That's how terrible his resolution is. Or else he wants to head off to Ephyre, that rich land, so he can fetch from there some lethal medicines and then throw them in the wine bowl to destroy us all." And after that, another proud young man would say, "Who knows whether he might die himself once he sets off in his hollow ship, roaming a long way from his friends, just like Odysseus. If so, he'll provide still more work for us. We'll have to split up everything he owns and hand this house over to his mother and the man she marries." That's how the suitors talked. But Telemachus just walked away, going down to the high-roofed chamber which stored his father's wealth, an extensive place. Bronze and gold lay there in stacks, with clothing packed in chests and stores of fragrant oil. Huge jars of old sweet wine stood there. Each one contained drink fit for gods and not yet mixed with water, arranged in rows along the wall, in case Odysseus, after so many hardships, ever reached his home. The close-fitting double doors were firmly closed, and a female steward stayed there day and night, protecting everything, the shrewd Euryclea, daughter of Ops, Picenor's son. Telemachus called her into the storage room, then said, "Old nurse, pour some sweet wine into jars for me, the best wine you've got, after the stock you've planned to store here for Odysseus, that ill-fated man born from Zeus, in case after evading death and fate he shows up from somewhere. Fill 12 jars and fit them all with covers. Pour me out some barley grain in well-stitched leather sacks. Make sure there are 20 measures of ground-up barley meal. But keep this knowledge to yourself. Just get all these things assembled. In the evening, once my mother goes upstairs into her room to get some sleep, I'll come to collect them. I'm off to sandy Pylos and to Sparta, to see if I can get some information about my dear father's journey home, if there is any news I can find out." Telemachus spoke. The dear nurse Euryclea let out a cry and began to weep. Then she spoke. Her words had wings. "Oh, my dear child, how did this thought gain entry to your heart? Where on this wide earth do you intend to roam, with you an only son and so well loved? In some distant land among strange people, Odysseus, a man born from Zeus, has died. As soon as you have gone from here, the suitors will start their wicked schemes to hurt you later. How they can have you killed by trickery, and then carve up among themselves all your possessions. You must stay here to guard what's yours. You don't need to suffer what comes from wandering on the restless sea." Shrewd Telemachus then answered her and said, "Be brave, dear nurse, for I have not planned this without help from a god, but you must swear you won't mention this to my dear mother until 11 or 12 days from now, or until she misses me or learns I've gone. so she does not mar her lovely face with tears. Once Telemachus said this, the old woman swore a mighty oath by all the gods she'd tell no one. When she had sworn and the oath had been completed, she went immediately to pour wine into jars and fill the well-stitched leather sacks with barley meal. Telemachus went up into the dining hall and there rejoined the company of suitors. Then goddess Athene with the gleaming eyes thought of something else. Looking like Telemachus, she went all through the city. To every man she came up to, she gave the same instructions, telling them to meet by the fast ship that evening. Next, she asked Noemon, fine son of Phronius, for a swift ship, and he was happy to oblige. The sun went down and all the roads grew dark. Athene dragged the fast ship down into the sea and stocked it with supplies, all the materials well-decked boats have stowed on board, then moved the ship to the harbour's outer edge. There they assembled, that group of brave companions, and the goddess instilled fresh spirit in them all. Then Athene, goddess with the glittering eyes, thought of one more thing. She set off, going to divine Odysseus home. There she poured sweet drowsiness on all the suitors. She made them wander round as they were drinking and knocked the cups out of their hands. When sleep fell down across their eyelids, the suitors felt an urge not to stay sitting there for any length of time, but to get themselves some rest down in the city. Then bright-eyed Athene told Telemachus to come outside, by the entrance to the spacious hall. In her voice and form she resembled Mentor. "Telemachus, your well-armed companions are already sitting beside their oars, waiting for you to launch the expedition. Let's be off, so we don't delay the trip a moment longer." With these words, Pallas Athene quickly led the way, and Telemachus followed in her footsteps. Once they'd come down to the sea and reached the ship, on shore they came across their long-haired companions. Telemachus spoke to them with strength and power. "Come, my friends, let's gather our supplies. They've already been assembled all together in the hall. My mother knows nothing of all this, and neither do any other women of the household. I've mentioned this to only one of them." After saying this, Telemachus led them away, and the group then followed. They carried everything to the well-decked ship, and stowed it all in place, as Odysseus' dear son instructed them to do. Then, with Athene going on board ahead of him, Telemachus embarked. She sat in the stern. Telemachus sat right beside her, as the men untied the stern ropes, then climbed aboard the ship and went to seat themselves beside their oarlocks. Bright-eyed Athene arranged a fair breeze for them, a strong west wind blowing across the wine-dark sea. Telemachus then called out to his companions to set their hands to the ship's rigging. Once they heard, they went to work, lifting up the mast cut from fir, setting it in its hollow socket, securing it with forestays, and hoisting the white sail aloft with twisted ox-hide thongs. The belly of the sail filled up with wind, and the ship sailed on its way. As it sliced straight through the swell on its way forward, around the bow began the great song of the waves. When they had lashed the rigging on that fast black ship, they set out bowls brimful of wine, and poured libations to the eternal, ageless gods, and of them all especially to Athene, Zeus's bright-eyed daughter. Then, all night long and well beyond the sunrise, their ship continued sailing on its journey.